The Prime Minister is set to take this net zero target to the Glasgow Climate Conference, despite some opposition from, seemingly, the Deputy Prime Minister himself. Joining me live is Phil Coorey, political editor at the Australian Financial Review. Thanks for your time. Interesting, essentially, we're hearing in this party room, Barnaby Joyce wasn't exactly supporting this, but it'll go with the party room. What's interesting about that, if true, is that he was seen as the person to get the Nats over the line, but maybe there's enough soft support there for them to support this anyway without Barnaby.
Well, I think he was he was under pressure to deliver a majority, support for net zero, Tom, and that was done. But he wasn't part of it, as we now know. So they didn't have a vote per se, but each member and senator stood up and said their bit. And people were keeping little lists, yes, no, and it's either 12-9 or 13-8, depending on who you listen to. But either way, it was a majority. And Barnaby was in the minority. So it is odd because he then came out and said, look, Morrison was telling him over the weekend, I'm going to Glasgow with net zero whether you support it or not. So Barnaby was making the point, look, it's better we're in the tent and we have a say in it and cushion the blow and get something for our constituents. But he didn't, I may be wrong here, but he didn't seem to be making that argument in the party room. Which is sort of what a leader might do and say, look, we may not like this, but it's our job to cushion the blow because he's going to do this regardless. So, yeah, it's going to make for an interesting question time.
And just really interesting to think of that Nats party room because what's been written about the mindset of it, seemingly, well, maybe Barney will be able to drag them over the line, seemingly isn't true, that things have shifted a bit maybe, and then George Christensen goes soon and it changes a bit further. Yeah. Is it sort of modernising, or are they realising what the narrative is and what their own voters are concerned in the region about the cost, but that they are concerned about climate change?
Well, they have moved. I mean, there was always going to be a majority on this. I mean, that was, I think, the expectation. But if you go back to just after Barnaby became leader, and remember he did that interview with us at the Financial Review and said, I'm not, if I do net zero, I'll lose my leadership. And then the next couple of days, Darren Chester and Michael McCormack and a whole bunch of people said, hold on, mate, we want to say in this. And I think it became apparent then that that it had shifted, and there was all sorts of people who came out in support of it. Susan McDonald from Queensland, she belongs to the biggest landholder grazier family in the country. They own millions of hectares. She knows what she's doing. So it was, So the thing is, some people were surprised in the party room by who came out in support of it. But at the end of the day, the Prime Minister needed that majority, and it's been delivered. But it's pretty clunky.
You can see on your screen there, and there's a statement from the Prime Minister. Keith Pitt is back in Cabinet. The PM saying, Minister Pitt is a powerful voice for the resources sector, ensuring we build upon Australia's strength in traditional exports while harnessing opportunities in new energy economy and critical minerals. He also wouldn't even say that he agrees with the climate science on climate change. So he has to sign up to it now. He's in Cabinet. Is it a Machiavellian move to make sure he's in Cabinet now?
Well, it was one of the demands. But if you go back, Keith Pitt lost his spot in Cabinet back in June because he didn't vote for Barnaby in the leadership spill. But he kept his portfolios of resources.
He was in that limbo because the PM ensured he kept something. He
he was actually just reasonable. But the point being is it was a daft idea to drop that portfolio from the Cabinet in the first place. The sector that does the most heavy lifting for our economy out of anything. So I think it makes sense to have that portfolio back in the Cabinet. But, they've had to make an extra spot. It's there because it's one of the demands. So,
2050 feels a little red herring, and I know I say that after talking about it for so long, but it matters in terms of our political discourse. But 2030 will be much more of a focus of this conference in Glasgow, and the PM will take a projection.
Projection, yeah. So
that's it.
Yeah. So he's going to say tomorrow that our target remains 26 to 28% over 2005 levels for 2030, but the latest data we've got shows we're going to knock that over easy. We'll probably do about 35%. So we're not going to make 35 a target. We're just going to keep it as a projection now. In the world of climate science, that is not good enough because investors say we want a target, not a projection. We're not going to shove money into something that's a projection and not locked in. But the Prime Minister, as we saw last week, the Nationals won't cop a target. Some of the Liberal base won't cop a target. I don't know why, because it's just formalising something they're going to do anyway. But it's just one of those impasses inside the coalition. So the PM will argue in Glasgow, well, it doesn't matter whether it's a projection or a target, we're going to get there.
We'll get there. We've done it before.
Achievement what matters.
So on. And just finally, for Labor's point of view, from my understanding, it's easy enough for them to bank the projection and they can say, yeah, we'll do the projection and commit to it. I mean, it's pretty hard for the government to campaign against that. It's whether they'll add to that, but do it in a different way. Add to it with set policies where they get independent analysis of here's what the emissions reduction will be and here's where we get to. Do you think they're willing to be at least that bold?
I think they might turn the projection into a target, and then people out there won't get the semantics of it, but if they go higher, they may pick a fight. But as Chris Bowen said today, they're ready this time for the scare campaign. It wouldn't be as easy for the coalition to mount because they've got the concerns of those seats in a Melbourne and in a Sydney where there's independents challenging. So Morrison will have to be a little bit careful. No more running around demonising electric vehicles and that sort of stuff. So yeah, look, I get the sense, Tom, both major parties just want to converge around similar policies and then not fight over this because it's such a 50-50 political issue. Yeah, there's risk for both sides. I know the coalition.
And internal spot fires for both.
Yeah, big time.
Even if one of them might feel they can get some electoral advantage, it's not an easy way to get it.
It's not easy, guys. Not anymore. No.
All right. Phil Coorey, good to talk.
Easy peasy.